All right, so the video we're going to be watching today to start off our React Andy for this week is going to be Kyto's video of the worst DBD takes. The worst DBD takes. So obviously we're going to be diving a lot into those, like we were talking about right before we started this little section. Is that we were talking about how a lot of bad DBD takes, DBD takes come from being fairly new at the game and not really understanding the full scope of the game. So you recommend some very crazy changes. Obviously, if you're really bad at handling windows when you first start learning how to loop this killer, you might say that Bamboozle should be base kit or something crazy like that. And that's always funny to see. But for some reason, a lot of people kind of seem to take a lot of their takes to the grave and hold them forever. So that's kind of spooky. But key thing before we move forward, these videos are brought to us by other people. They are not made by us, so you should support the official release of said video by liking and subscribing to this video. I just posted the link in the chat just a second ago. It will be down in the description below if you guys are watching on the YouTube end of things. No head base kit, that's another one. That's another one. That one seems to endure. A lot of people want no head base kit for some reason. Yeah, let's see some of the worst DBD takes.
I asked you guys to submit your hottest Dead by Daylight takes, and I'm going to be reacting to them today. RPD is a completely fine map. It's not as bad as everyone thinks it is, and it can actually be really good if you know your way around it. I completely disagree. It goes against every single thing that makes a map good.
I'd actually appreciate you.
Aesthetics, it's an amazing map. They nailed it, like completely nailed it. Think of literally any single bad map in the history of DBD. Old Haddonfield with the fences and the hedges where you couldn't get to where you wanted to go quickly. This map has a ton of that with the multiple floors and the really long walls. Size. Everybody complains about the size of Swamp and Mother's Dwelling. RPD is massive. Plus it's multiple floors. It may not feel massive, but it's multiple floors and an inside and an outside. So it is very...
And it used to be both east and west at the same time on top of that. That's why they said at one point that it was their biggest map they'd ever made. Because it was like 3-floored if you include the library, and it was that wide. Like, it was
not
disgusting.
Knowing where things are is also a huge thing, but it's not necessarily because people don't know the rooms. It's just like solo queue survivors have no idea where other teammates are or where gens are sometimes.
Yeah,
all
clearly
of the
your
pallets
first
are
was
either
4 hours in the street. You did
or
it.
god pallets, so there's no interactivity there. There's only like one window on the map that's actually interactive and that you could play around. It's just a boring map overall. There's just nothing. There's just no variety with it, essentially.
I never even thought about that, but they're definitely right in that regard. Is like there is like the one window in the blue room, and that's basically it, besides like the window on the balcony. Maybe it's like it's mostly just like room with pallet, room with pallet, room with pallet, room with pallet. It is very samey.
An average nurse is actually really fun to face, one of the most fun killers in the game. I don't think this is a hot take. I think anybody enjoys playing against a nurse that's not that good. You have to think about it. Like, an average nurse isn't good because you're either a bad nurse or a good nurse. There's like no in between. So I would say I don't think this is a hot take. I'm pretty sure anybody that knows how to play against a nurse likes going against an average nurse. Lithe is the best exhaustion perk. That is just absolutely not true. I think Lithe is basically just an easier version of Sprint Burst, but I think Sprint Burst can just help you in so many more ways.
People don't want to learn 99ing and stuff like that.
Harder to use. Although Lithe is still very, very strong. And Ace is the best character. That is just wrong. Circle of Healing is still very strong as long as everyone knows what they're doing. I don't really know because I haven't played with Circle of Healing much, but it's just like, why bother bringing that?
Warcries, homie, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate that, bud. Hopefully your Wednesday is going well. The reason I pause is because Circle of Healing with the aura reading kind of functions as kind of like a bootleg wiretap. But on top of that as well, it is we'll make it as like a group version of that perk. So I think it has its applications. It's still like, I don't know if it's really worth that time deficit of putting it down, but the fact that it basically functions as 2 perks is really interesting. Very, very interesting. And I don't think it's as bad. Like, people have just given up on using it because it's not OP anymore. And I think people are being too harsh on it. I don't know if that makes it still good,
instead of bringing just like other healing builds and other healing perks. You know, most good players don't even heal most of the match because why would you when you can just do gens, you know? So it's just, it can be, I'm sure it can be good if you're on a coordinated team, but you have to be really, really high level and really know your callouts and stuff to be able to use it properly. The twins are really fun to play as and against, and Deception is an underrated perk. Therefore, Binding of Kin was a great chapter.
I think twins are just like, I think the twins are fun.
The game is,
but I think the twins are fun, but they're too clunky. Like, they are a fun character to play, but they are just too like they need a desperate like quality of life patch to make them feel good, because there's just too much awkwardness to playing them, and like they're bugged like every chapter. Every chapter they have a bug that's like making it harder to play them. Playing against them can be pretty obnoxious too, because Victor has that big giant hitbox problem that Huntress has, which makes it pretty ugly to face sometimes, especially if the twins is laggy. And obviously, you know, bleeding out on the floor is not the most fun.
In a healthier state than ever before. Now this is a hot take because I agree with it, but I don't agree with the term healthier. I think it's in the most balanced state that it's ever been, which I think actually makes the game worse overall. This is my hot take, okay? Dead by Daylight is a party game. It is not competitively viable. It was not designed to be.
See, you say that, but like, you know, channels for years have been like crying and lobbying for balance in the game, and now we have it in the new hot take as well. It's boring now. It's like, you guys lobbied for this for years. Like, you guys lobbied for this for years. You guys have been pushing for balance in the game for years, and now you finally have it, and you're like, well, now the game's just boring. It's like, do we just always need something to complain about? Like, do we just need something to always complain about? Like, I don't know. I don't get this. Like, I think the game's, I have fun on DBD still. Our fun streak is, let's check that real quick. What was our fun streak at? I turned it off for today because it's a PTB. 74? 74? Our fun streak's at 74. I've had 74 fun straight games. I haven't been bored in those matches. What game are you guys playing that you're just like this miserable all the time? Like, I'm just not having that experience. And especially since it's come as a direct result of like the balance that people have pushed for years. It's like, did you not I guess people just push for things and maybe didn't think that they would actually go through with it. Like, I don't know.
Competitively viable. The fundamentals of the game itself are not competitive, which is why when you try to balance it so that it is competitive, it's so boring and stale and has no life or soul in the game. Like, there's so much that you can do in this game, but it all feels the same. It's really hard to explain. Onryo is underrated even without the condemned build, and also a super fun killer to play as and against. It depends on what you mean by underrated.
I enjoy playing her. I really enjoy playing her, and I have used the condemned build like maybe once. I really enjoy playing her. I really enjoy. She's fun. She's one of my favorite M1 killers.
That's subjective, but from a power perspective, she's just an M1 killer that can teleport around the map. From an objective standpoint, I can't see how.
Well, she's the only character in the game that can control her own passive phasing. Like, passive phasing on Spirit just kind of happens, but you can actually control her passive phasing, which makes looping with her a little bit more dynamic. Obviously, of course, if you still have the problem of like a smart player will just pre-drop and call it a day, right? But like, if you can trick people using your passive phasing, it can get you some hits that are super fun and interesting just based on your own ability to mess with people, which is what I like playing about her.
Is better than like Wraith or like Blight. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, obviously Blight's a bit of a stretch, but just for the traversability wise, her teleporting is decent. But you can
she's
do
still like
that
a C tier
much better with a lot of other killers. And then her stealth ability is just a worse version of Wraith's. So I don't know. I don't think she's underrated. I think people understand that she's like one of the weakest killers in the game. Old Dead Hard.
No, she's not one of the weakest killers. I wouldn't even put her in bottom 5. Onryo, one of the weakest killers in the game? I wouldn't even put her bottom 5. She'd be around there, but I wouldn't even put her bottom 5. Sadako is not that weak. I feel like that's an over-exaggeration. I do not feel she is that weak. Dude, Old Dead Hard is healthier for the game? Oh no.
The one that gave you distance was a lot healthier to the game. This is hard because I didn't have a problem with Old Dead Hard as a killer main. I do think the new Dead Hard was healthier to the game overall, but I do think the Old Dead Hard was significantly more fun because you can actually make cool plays with it. They should just remove the iframes instead of reworking it to what it is now. No, the entire problem with Old Dead Hard was Dead Harding for distance because that was completely uncounterable. The iframes, like, it was pretty easy to get around that. The only reason the iframes were annoying is if you're playing killers like Huntress or like Blight or Nurse. But like, to be fair, you don't, like, who cares? Those killers are strong anyway. You have to tunnel at least one person as the killer to win.
You have to tunnel at least one person as killer to win. I have a 92% win rate in this game currently. And I tunnel like 1 out of 3 matches, if that. It is not required. It's not required to win this game. The bad killer player, yeah, like, you just outed yourself. You just outed yourself. If you think that, you're having to tunnel you're having to resort to one of your strongest catch-up tools possible every single game to win. Because, like, that's what tunneling, camping, and all that stuff, that's what that is. That's like the way you catch up when a team is performing too well, or you're not putting out enough pressure on the map. If you're constantly having to resort to your most powerful tool constantly to have consistent results, that means the rest of your toolkit is underdeveloped. That's what that means. That's what that tells me. That means you're not confident and you're not good at playing the rest of the game, so you have to resort to what is realistically the easiest things too. Like camping and tunneling realistically don't take a lot of skill to do. Hit the same guy off hook, go back to hook, hang out around hook. Like all that stuff doesn't really require a lot of input on your end, but it is one of your strongest tools. So that tells me the rest of your toolkit is underdeveloped. That's what that tells me.
This is just objectively wrong. Like, I don't tunnel in 95% of my matches, and I still win a majority of them. So this is just wrong. Hag is not an unfun killer to go against.
No, she
is.
It's
just that most people don't know how to play her. Or
no. I was talking about this when you guys were requesting me to play Hag on Monday. Was that like Hag is anti-meta? She's an anti-meta character, and there's always going to be an anti-meta something in every sort of game that has any sort of versus quality to it. There's always going to be the character that goes against the grain, the character that goes and does the opposite thing of what the other characters do. And since most characters in this game have some ways to circumvent chase, Trapper with his traps, Wraith with his stealth or windstorm that he currently has, Hillbilly with the chainsaw, Nurse obviously just blinks straight to him. Most characters, the whole point of their power is to circumvent chase somehow. So she's the opposite. She doesn't chase. She gets her one down and then makes the most out of that one down by camping. She can essentially face camp from partway across the map at any given point. So she is the anti-meta. Since most killers are all about, circumventing chase, hers is about not chasing and just getting the most bang for your very little hooks. So like that's, you succeeded. Yeah, you did it. You made the anti-meta killer, but like, is the anti-meta killer fun? No. Nobody likes being face camped from across the map. Of course they don't.
Against her, if you properly set up webs of traps, it's extremely satisfying to get hits. And on the survivor end of things, Hag makes you think about stuff that you normally wouldn't think about, which in my opinion makes her extremely fun.
I'd rather face a knight than a Hag.
I completely agree with this. I hate that
the
majority of people do not like playing against Hag or like playing as her. She is a very, very fun killer to play against because there's so much interactivity that can happen in chase.
No,
like, just watch this chase on screen. The amount of things that both the...
But she shouldn't be putting her trap there. That's...
Killer and I are thinking in our heads. It's like,
why is she stopping every 2 feet to drop her? She's playing poorly. That's why you're having fun, because she's playing poorly. She shouldn't be dropping the traps every 2 feet and even chasing you here. Like, it's because she's not
you
doing
have to think
not
about
playing
so
well.
much, and I just love that part of chases when you have to do so many different mind games. Like in this chase specifically, I thought more than 2 steps ahead of what the Hag would think about doing, and just that.
No, because she shouldn't be stopping mid chase to put down like 3 traps at one loop. Like, that's not. She's playing poorly. That's why.
Of mind gaming the killer and thinking multiple steps ahead and thinking about what they're probably thinking.
Because she's trying to chase you. She's not a chase killer. She's trying to chase you. She's okay.
So fun to me, and I don't know. I really like Hag, but I understand why people don't, because a lot of Hags, camp or whatever.
That's what her kid's supposed to do. What? That's what the kid is supposed to do. That's what the kid is supposed to do. Oh, well, the ones that camp, yeah, they do suck. That's what her kid is built to do. So yeah, that's what most of them are. Okay. That in itself is a bad take. That's a bad take of a bad take. that did not make sense to me. Yeah, I mean, of course the ones that camp are bad. Well, yeah, that's what she's built to do, so duh. Does that mean, no, you won't be catching me playing Hag outside of
always either gets cleansed before I get 3 tokens, or I single-handedly get a 4K because of it, which I don't think is a good design concept for.
No, that's why it works.
I don't necessarily think this is a good...
No, that's why it works. It's a Hail Mary. It's a hey, I'm gonna put all my eggs in one basket. We have this perk that, hey, if it goes well, it could dominate the entire match. But if it doesn't, I just have a dead perk slot. Yeah, high risk, high reward. That's the point. You're foregoing a safe perk that you can get consistent value out of for the potential to have major snowball, but only if everything lands in the correct spots, if everything goes well. It's a gamble. It's a fun gamble, but it is a gamble. It
good
shouldn't be more
argument
consistent.
because the entire point of hex perks is that you either get nothing out of it or you get a ton of value.
Yeah,
out of it.
exactly.
So I would have to disagree. With mid-level add-ons, a flashlight is the most useful item in the game. This is just wrong. Like, this is just straight up wrong. Flashlights are probably one of the worst items in the game. Like, they are not as good as people think they are. They're so easy to counter. And this is
like a baby killer argument, right? Not saying that that person's a baby killer, but that's like a baby killer argument. Like somebody who just keeps getting like flashlight saved over and over. Those are the people that are like, oh my god, flashlights are so powerful, because they don't know how to face a wall yet. They don't know how to like check around, make sure nobody's like hanging around for the flashlight save before they pick up. Like, they don't know how to do that yet. So to them, yeah, flashlights probably do seem like scary and intense and super strong, but like it's realistically something you're going to grow out of. So
don't really do much if you know how to counter them. Like, this is probably a bait post, but medkits, toolboxes, even maps and keys are more useful than flashlights. But flashlights are just like significantly more fun, so that's why everybody runs them. I like playing against tryhard survivors as a killer and vice versa, because the gratification of beating sweaty survivors is always better than the malding of losing.
Yeah, which is fine, but that's like, you know, that's what that's why the competency does exist for this game, because some people are like this. Some people are like, I want the best of the best versus the best of the best. I want to see who is the best, you know, like that sentimentality does exist, or that sentiment does exist in the game. So like, that's why this game endures and has a comp scene, despite the fact that there's so much RNG involved in the game itself, like inherently. So yeah.
I would have to agree to a certain extent. I like every once in
I
a
have
while.
to be, yeah, like he's about to say, I want to be I have to be in the mood, right? Like, I have to be like on my Huntress running good add-ons, you know, like, and then if I fight a really, really good team, I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. This is awesome, right? Like, if I'm playing Huntress and Billy and I run into a really, really good team, it's exhilarating. But if I'm just wanting to chill for the day and I just want to relax and I'm playing like Clown or somebody I don't really play too much, I'm gonna be like, oh. So it really just depends.
While going up against a really, really good killer or a really, really good survivor, it's just when it gets to the point where every single
Jansen, you don't like
game
having
is the same thing, and it's always either tryhard survivors or tryhard killers, it gets very repetitive and it gets very boring, which is why I'm glad that the MMR system is so unbelievably bad in this game that this doesn't happen that often. But it is, of course, it is satisfying to beat sweaty survivors.
That's what I heard the most. When people are talking about like DBD is boring now, most people talk about the sweatiness, which is the skill-based matchmaking, the MMR problem. Like, that is the single root of the thing that you're talking about. Like, if you absolutely detest playing this game because of the sweatiness, skill-based matchmaking needs to be taken out. That's the thing you need to eat out. Where's the HUD? There's a way to turn it off. You can go in and turn it off, but yeah, it's outside of the game on the PC version.
Survivor or the sweaty killer is just playing in a really cringe way, like just not picking anybody up from the ground and just like slugging everybody the entire game. That's not fun. Like, that is not, I don't get satisfaction for beating them in that game. Like, to me, it's just like, why are you even doing this? Like, obviously you could do whatever you want because it's a video game, but just why? Like, it's so dumb. I don't know. Clown can be very good if you have skill with him. I would have to actually agree with this. The
Clown's way more in depth than people think he is.
If survivors are good and they pre-drop pallets and they don't let you get your hits because they pre-drop your pallets, Clown sucks. But I actually don't think he's as bad as people say. I do think he has a lot of potential, especially on very open maps that have like not that many pallets. Definitely gonna get flamed for this one, but I like the Skull Merchant both going against and playing as.
Okay to be wrong.
I am so sorry for
your
loss.
To be wrong.
Post-game chat should be completely deleted because of the amount of toxicity, plus half the words are censored for some reason.
I don't think it should be deleted. I don't think it should be deleted. Like, you shouldn't take away the thing from everybody just because a few people have ruined it. That doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me at all.
I wouldn't mind this, but I would rather keep the post-game chat on. And if you are annoyed by toxicity,
I don't
just
know.
turn it off.
I've met some of you guys through like actually playing out, meeting you guys out there in the wild playing the games. It's not a great deal of you, but I've met some of you, who I'm actually playing, and it's like, it's really nice. But you know, we wouldn't have that in this person's world, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Ali Bobali, hello, friend. How's your Wednesday? Good to see you, bud. Yeah, exactly. Like what this guy says, like, just turn it off. Just turn it off if you hate it.
You can literally click a button to turn it off if you don't want to see post-game chat.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think
then we wouldn't be
having
friends
the
today
option
if it
there
weren't
is
for
fine.
the
Although
Apple
I
chat,
think
you
you
know?
should have the option to censor words or not censor words, depending on what you want. Like,
Yeah.
that's what most games do nowadays. Killers shouldn't be able to grab survivors during the unhook because it incentivizes camping,
Yeah, we've talked
causes
about
people
this
to
before.
rage quit, and it's just really effing lame in general.
requires
I don't
zero
think this
skill.
is a hot take. I think most people
Requires zero
completely
skill.
agree with this.
No,
Besides
people
the
don't. When I made that video, I got flamed for this. When I made that video talking about this, I got flamed for this opinion. I got flamed for it.
killers that camp. Like, I think that's totally fine. Okay, let's find a middle ground here, though. I think healthy survivors shouldn't be able to be grabbed, but injured survivors should. How about that? Because either way, the injured survivor is going to go down anyway, so, like, who cares? Blight is bad without his add-ons. He is
bad without his add-ons? No. No. No, no, no. Not even remotely. Hello? Dude, I've been playing it with no add-ons recently. Like, whenever I'm playing Blight, I go no add-ons. And I'm still winning most of my matches. That's just not correct.
a perfectly designed killer with just overpowered add-ons. No, Blight is not a bad killer base kit. He is very, very good. His add-ons amplify him even more, but base kit, he is a very strong killer.
No, he's still
Most
very
of the
good.
hits that you see good Blights get are not, it doesn't have anything to do with his add-ons. So no, this is just wrong. Dead by Daylight will die if licenses aren't more common. I do not agree with this whatsoever.
I think eventually, yes. Because that's a big appeal of the game, is kind of like the Smash Brothers nature of it. The fact that, like, who's coming next, what next big thing is coming to the game. But, like, I don't think it's going to kill the game. I think, like, for example, like, thankfully the singular, like, for example, we're like earlier right now, Knight and Skull Merchant were just boring, dull chapters, and the singularity is actually pretty fun. I like the perks that came with them. Well, not so much on the killer side. I like the perks that came with them. I like the singularity himself. He's funny, very, very charismatic killer, just talking crap the whole way. But his power is also fun. I don't like the map, but, like, you know, DBD can survive off original chapters as long as they're good and not garbage like the last two. But other than that, like, a big appeal of DBD is what is the next big IP coming, and if I don't think they could survive solely on, especially at this point, since it's so much of their branding and identity, just not having an IP ever again. So that's just how I take it.
If Dead by Daylight actually focused on making fun killers, it'll keep the current player base happy. I think if they want to grow, then yes, licenses need to be more common because it brings in new players. But I think if they want to retain the current player base that they already have, they need to stop putting out Skull Merchant and Knight and, you know, all of the recent killers that have been just so boring. I said it once and I'll say it again. Billy deserved his add-on check. Get out. Get out.
We're not going to hear that.
Pyramid Head should have bigger cake. This isn't a hot take. Roots of Dread was the best anniversary chapter? Bro, you're telling me Roots of Dread was better than Pyramid Head's release?
people love Dredge. People love Dredge a lot. Like, a lot. People unironically think, like, Hattie Dredge was, like, the best thing to ever hit the game. Garno Joy, Hattie Dredge are the best thing to ever happen to the game. I think a lot of it is the Hattie stands. A lot of it is the Hattie stands. But yeah, a lot of people regard that chapter very, very highly. It's interesting. Very, very interesting.
That is so incorrect. Forced Penance is a good perk. It depends. I don't think Forced Penance
really.
is a good perk purely because it's so, like, it's only good against survivors that are good, and a majority of your matches are against bad survivors. So I don't think it's worth running. But if you know for a fact that you're going to be going
I think perks that rely on such an oddly specific thing happening to go off, they kind of, not that they don't have a place in the game, but obviously they're just going to be inherently weaker because the effect they're applying, even if the effect's really good, like the broken status effect, like if the event that, you know, causes it to happen is rare, like it is in pubs for body blocking, then you're just not going to get a whole lot of value out of it. You know, and that's just, like, that's the sucky truth of it. Yeah. Just run Starstruck? Yeah, like, you would get more value out of running Starstruck in that, like, same scenario if a bunch of survivors are grouped up and you pick somebody up. Yeah, like, Starstruck would just be way better. Especially if you're playing somebody like Spirit. Oh my god. Spirit with Starstruck is that's disgusting! Absolutely disgusting. Ooh.
against good survivors, like in a tournament or something, then yeah, I could see force penance being a good perk. Adrenaline should very much be nerfed, as in they replace the free health state with endurance.
I've never had a problem with adrenaline. Adrenaline is a reward for winning the game. Adrenaline doesn't cheat you out of a victory. Adrenaline is a reward for already nearly achieving the victory. Like you have successfully won 90% of the game. So Addy is there to, essentially like, hey, good job for winning 90% of the game. Hopefully this helps you win the last 10%. Yeah, like that's literally what it is. Like it's a reward for already playing 90% of the game well. It has a prerequisite that takes forever and makes Addy a dead perk slot if you don't get all 5 gens done. If you really hate Addy, like, Noed's a general perk. I'm not the biggest fan of Noed, not from a survivor perspective, but from a killer's perspective. I think it's just a fun perk you should run for fun. Terminus as well. Terminus is another great example. Like, just start, like, you have endgame perks that you can run if you really, really detest this perk. But, like, Addy rewards you for playing the game well for 90% of the game. So, like, it's not just like it comes out of nowhere and it's unfair at all.
They give a bigger penalty for when endurance procs. I do not agree. I think adrenaline is one of the best perks in the entire game, and I think it's perfectly designed. I don't think there's any reason that you should nerf it. It's a really
don't go down this path that behavior does, where just because a perk is good and used a lot means it deserves to be nerfed. Because that's how we lost barbecue stacks. That's how we lost We're Gonna Live Forever stacks. That's how we lost corrupt. It's because people just assume just because something was good and used a lot that it's overpowered, and that's just not the case. You would uninstall. It's literally a perfectly fine perk. There's no reason to change it.
Fun perk. It rewards survivors for actually completing their objective. This entire perk design is rewarding you for doing well. And I think that most perks should be like that. Cool. They should remove indoor maps. I don't like indoor maps, but I disagree. I think it adds a ton of variety, and I think we need variety in this game.
I think what is wrong with his... Something's wrong with his Larry's, by the way. But yeah, I think indoor maps, I get why they're bad and why they inherently go against the grain of like how it, like the gameplay flow of DBD goes. But like, honestly, indoor maps are, from a mood perspective, from like an atmosphere and aesthetic, is really cool. Midwich, despite how poorly it plays on the survivor side, is one of my favorite maps in the game because it's so aesthetically cool and so aesthetically interesting. Like, I love playing on that map just because, for the sake of the aesthetic. Like, indoor maps have a lot of the best aesthetics in the game. So from like a prettiness perspective, yeah, but like from a gameplay perspective, yeah, they suck. Yeah, I don't know why. Why would they remove that? That's just so weird to me. I just don't know why they would do that. There's kind of like no reason to.
It helps stealth killers do better. Sometimes it's really fun for survivors because they can do different stealth builds, like the Overcome, Lucky Break, Bite the Bullet build. I do not think they should remove indoor maps. The game is nowhere near as bad as a state people say it is. Yep. I feel like people are just looking for reasons to complain half the time, especially on Twitter.
This is what I was saying at the beginning of this video. This is what I was saying at the beginning of this video. Like what are we at? Where are we at? 74 straight fun matches? And then our last streak before that was 32, before we had a quad slowdown Skull Merchant just BMing everything. Like, the game is in one of the best states it's been in. Is there a lot that we still need to work on and keep consistent with? Yeah, oh yeah. But like, I feel like the people that complain are kind of starting to out themselves. Because the things they complained and lobbied to get changed are getting changed and actually are changing. And even though they got the changes that they wanted, they're still complaining. So like, I feel like they're starting to out themselves because the things they lobbied for years went through and they still feel miserable in the game. So I feel like the complainers are outing themselves.
DBD Twitter complains about literally everything to possibly exist on this planet. So yes, I'd have to agree with you there. However, I do think the game is in the worst state that it's ever been in. It's just...
The game is in the worst state it's ever been in? What video game are you playing? Dead by Daylight's in the worst state it's ever been in? Huh? Dead by Daylight is in the worst state it's ever been in, huh? Do you remember the Twins chapter? Do you remember the Twins chapter? Do you remember when half the killer roster was broken and the brand new killer just didn't function literally at all? Do you remember that? Because I fucking remember that. That was the worst time that I ever played this game. What do you mean? This is the worst. The worst. The worst DBD. What? But the Twins chapter was wacky, unpredictable. Yeah, because half the shit didn't work, including the new killer. It was a mess. That was the most buggy chapter I've ever played. I know there was one that was worse before I started playing, but people still agree that the Twins is either the worst or the second worst chapter to ever come out, not because of the quality of the chapter, because everything was buggy, broken, and terrible. The perks that came with it were bad. The perks that came with it were bad on both sides. Hill bug. Yeah, just everything. Everything was broken in that chapter. Everything was broken in that chapter. Everything. Like, it was more common that, like, your killer completely normally functioned during that chapter. Like, that was the weird thing. That was the weird thing. If your killer actually had no bugs that chapter, you were lucky if your killer didn't have bugs that chapter. The other one worse than Legion. Apparently there was a chapter a long time ago where, like, all the killer powers were, like, super bugged, like super early DBD that I just wasn't present for. Yeah, the Nemesis being completely unplayable on console, like, that's a huge deal. That's a huge deal. Bless you, thank you. Yeah, I just muted it. I didn't want to sneeze out those ears. You have one of the worst takes in your own worst take video. Wow.
There's so many killers that are boring, and there's so many playstyles that are boring right now, and they just keep releasing them. Like, they just keep adding more. So all of the fun aspects of DBD are slowly becoming less and less common because there's more and more unfun stuff. I would have to agree and disagree. I don't think it's like the most
what a bad
awful,
take.
atrocious
What an
game
awful
ever.
take.
Like, there's still a lot of fun
this
stuff.
This feels like revisionist history. Like, it feels like you're so caught up in, like, the things that are frustrating you in the game right now that you've completely forgotten how bad certain chapters have been in the past. Like, you have forgotten. And I'm good. I'm glad that we are so far past those moments in history that we just don't look upon them with disdain anymore. But I sure remember. I sure remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Yeah, that one. That one, Progressive. That one. That's the one. That's the one people point at as, like, the most broken, unfun chapter.
In this game, but it
or
is,
non-chapter, but period of the game.
One
And
of
I
the
wasn't
most
around
boring
for that.
states it's ever been in right now. Wesker is harder to master than Blight. That is really interesting. I do not know because I do not know the.
Kind of inclined to agree, actually. Like, I'm kind of inclined to agree. Because, like, most of it is, like, hug teching, which is super easy. Like, I play the character, like, 2 or 3 times a month, and I can do that super easily. A lot of the more impressive flicks and stuff, like, yeah, that takes some skill and as a skill curve to it. But, like, Wesker has so many techs. Like, he's almost, like, he's getting closer to that, like, that Billy realm, where people are still finding techs all the time. Like, Auron found a new tech the other day, which is all about, like, sliding past objects. Like, you can just glide across them and, like, end up somewhere completely new. Like, the skill ceiling is rising every day. Like, every day for that character. And Blight is basically just, me go fast, me flick. Like, me hug tech. That's it, right? I feel like, once again, I say this in a lot of videos, and I've said this on the Twitch a lot. I feel like Blight players just have big egos, so they like to pretend their character has a super high skill ceiling when realistically it doesn't. They just want to play the second strongest character in the game and pretend they're putting in that effort when realistically they're not. Bump Logic has an extremely high skill ceiling. You think so? I mean, I get the gist of it. I, like, barely play him. You think so? You think the Bump Logic has a high skill ceiling? So much collision is bad, but that's, like, you could just watch people. You don't even have to, like, do it yourself. You can just watch people play Blight, and you can just be like, okay, so that is slippery, that is not. Like, you don't even have to actually do any of that yourself. You can just, like, watch people play Blight on certain maps and kind of just absorb that knowledge. Yeah, that's a knowledge thing. That's not really an execution thing, so it's only, like, half. A lot of things that, like, on Wesker, for example, who is, you know, we believe has a higher skill ceiling, requires both execution and knowledge. So, Yeah, I think Blight's vastly overstate how difficult their character is, and Wesker mains keep cranking his skill ceiling. So, yeah.
Skill ceiling of Wesker, but I have seen some clips on Twitter about Wesker doing some insane things that I never even knew that you could do with him. So maybe like, this is a possibility, but I do know that Blight's skill ceiling is so unbelievably high. Like if you see a competitive game with Blight as the killer on Larry's, you'll see how insane people are at Blight. So
yeah, you are exactly. It's another good one, Zombie. A very, very well put. It's like, yeah, you have tons of second chances on Blight. You could have up to 7 rushes. You can mess up a lot and it still will be fine. Wesker, you have 2. You have 2. You have 2. You have 2 opportunities to get it right. And a lot of times you need to use both of them to even get the hit in the first place. So it's not like you can just mess up the first time. So I don't know. I also play Blight unless I play the same way.
Like this, I could agree, I could disagree. I just don't know because I don't know the potential of Wesker. Decisive Strike should go back to...
Peepo arrived 2 opportunities to get it right.
6 months already? 6 months already? Dear Lord. Dear Lord. Does not feel like it's been that long. Good to have you here. Good to see you, Tots. Thank you for that. That's very, very sweet of you. Thank you.
5 seconds, but give exhaustion.
Give exhaustion.
That is a really, really interesting rework idea. I think DS should just go back to 5 seconds. Pig is B tier. No, I think she can.
I think a cool thing about DS, go back to DS, is I feel like you should roll off the shoulder immediately. Like I think the problem with 3-second DS is that you have 3 seconds only, but also you don't hit the ground right away. So it takes you like 2 seconds to even like get running. They should just they should just have it that the DS is instant and you could just like start running. I think that would fix it pretty easily. I would explain it.
Exhaustion. That is a really, really interesting rework idea. I
also,
think
Pig is not B tier.
Should just go back to 5 seconds. Pig is B tier.
Pig is not B tier.
I think she can.
Pig is way more consistent than she's ever been. Pig is way more consistent than she's ever been ever since her box rework, but she's definitely not B tier.
B tier, but I don't think she is B tier. Does that make sense? Bubba was a useless killer to be added to the game. I disagree wholeheartedly. No? I think every single killer has a place in this game, some, you know, worse than others, but Bubba added so much to this game, like so much personality to this game. I think
and a very popular IP
when he came out, yeah, he was kind of useless because why would you use him over Hillbilly? But
yeah, he was very weak, but he's still the not protagonist. He is the main antagonist of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is like kickstarted the entire slasher franchise that this game is based off of. Like culturally alone, super impactful.
He plays very differently to Hillbilly. I think he's a great addition to this game. The Garden of Joy is a good map. Absolutely not. I think aesthetically
it's fun
probably
for Survivor.
My favorite map in the game. I think it's a really, really cool looking map. And I do like a lot of the loops, actually. Like I have a good time in a lot of the loops, but it's just the size is just awful and the main building is awful. If they reduced the size and made the main building like a little bit more fun to play around, if they turned it into like actual loops instead of the typical like indoor building loops, then I would have to agree with you because I actually really like a lot of...
I will say this, and I hate this as just like a concept. I hate breakable walls as a concept, but honestly, there's some breakable walls in this main building to make it more, or make it less insufferable, and then slightly adjust the backside, and then you're good.
The sections of Garden of Joy, especially the parking lot loop, because it's just, there's so much you can do with it, but at the same time, it's like a new loop. You know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of like a typical jungle gym, but still, it's different. But yeah, I think it's just the size that makes it so bad. People who don't play both sides shouldn't have game balance opinions. I don't think that's a hot take.
I don't think they shouldn't have opinions, but I feel like they should realize that their opinions may be biased. And walk into every conversation understanding that their take may be biased. That's all I ask. I don't ask them to not have takes about the game, not have feelings about the game, but you know, at least walk into every conversation you're having about the game as like, oh well, with a grain of salt, essentially. Like, hey, this is like, this could potentially be not factual because I'm only seeing the game mostly from one perspective. But, you know, most people don't. People are just like, the way I perceive the game is true. And it's like, you know, they're not even, like, accounting for the fact that they may be biased, which is ridiculous.
think that's just like true. If you don't play both sides, like your opinion is invalid. I mean, it's not invalid, but like it shouldn't be prioritized if you don't understand how the other side plays. But at the same time, like most people play Survivor, right? If they're not having fun, then the game goes downhill. So I think behavior does consider their opinions, but in general, for like actual good players and people who like play the game constantly, I agree. I totally agree. No-ed base kit.
Yeah, there we knew that was gonna come.
Be against it, but at the same time,
why would you? Why? Why would you be? Wait, that you want no-ed base kit? Why? Just bring the perk. Bring the perk. Why do you want a base kit? Just bring the perk. It already exists as a perk. Just bring the perk.
Time it kind of removes the fun factor from no-ed where it's like a surprise, right? And
Yeah,
it's kind of fun to determine whether or not you think the killer will have no-ed, because usually you can tell just by the way they play. Like if they camp and they tunnel, they usually have no-ed, or if they're like really bad or they have frosty eyes, they usually have
frosty
no-ed.
eyes.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of a funny game that you can play to just guess if they have no-ed. But I honestly wouldn't be against it. It would give survivors an extra objective to do if they want to get rid of no-ed. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to test on like a
you want that with like all the like you were talking earlier in this video about how like you feel like camping and tunneling is at an all-time high and how frustrated that makes you, but you want to have base kit no-ed. You want people to also be doing 5 totems along with all the gens when you're talking about how boring the game is right now. These thoughts don't seem like they can occupy the same philosophy. So on top of just holding M1 on 90-second gens and somebody being camped or tunneled in the background, you also wanted them to also be on 5 totems at the same time. In solo queue, potentially. Weird.
PTB or something. DBD is a good game and the devs are underappreciated. They constantly listen to feedback and do their best to fix.
Not constantly. More recently they have, but not constantly. They historically have not done this. It's more weird that in the past couple of years that they have been paying more attention. And now everybody's calling the game boring because they started paying attention. So like...
People just need to understand that it is impossible to make everybody happy and they either have to enjoy the game for what it is or stop playing and complaining. I agree with like half of this. The devs are underappreciated. I totally agree with that. I think the devs put in a ton of work and they're like struggling to make updates to a game that's built on a terrible engine and just runs on spaghetti code. But listening to feedback is very hit or miss. Like there's some things that they do that makes absolutely zero sense. The hillbilly changes, for example. Why were they planning on nerfing the engravings? Nobody asked for that. Not a single person asked for that. It feels like behavior is purposely doing controversial changes to kill the game or alter it entirely enough to where the original player base won't play it.
I think it's just
I don't think
ignorance.
this is correct. I think they're just realizing that it's been the same exact game for 7 years in a row and they're just trying to switch it up. Sprint Burst has always been better than Dead Hard, yet avoids the nerfs because it takes time to master. This is just objectively true in my opinion. I think Sprint Burst has always been the best exhaustion perk in the game. It's so difficult to be able to use it properly that I don't think they care. I think you're completely right. I don't think they'll ever nerf Sprint Burst because of how difficult it is to actually use in a way that makes it good. DBD was better when it was unbalanced and MMR didn't exist. I personally completely agree with this.
I think I agree with the MMR part, but not the complete unbalance. And I feel like if anybody goes back to a lot of the that they formerly had to deal with the game, you would not feel that way.
Is a really hot take, but I do agree.
I'm gonna start doing this. What I'm gonna start doing, I'm gonna start going to every person who says the game is boring now and finding and just farming clips of them bitching about some old perk or some old map or something and go, hey, did you have fun when it was unbalanced back then? Were you having a good time? It doesn't sound like you were having a good time. I remember you bitching about this. I remember you whining and complaining nonstop about this perk or this map. Now you're saying the game is boring. Would you want to go? We can take you back. We can take you back there. We could go back there if you want. And we'll see how they react. We'll see how they react.
I think it's more fun when there's just like crazy stuff happening every single game. Like you never know what to expect. It's so much variety. Demogorgon is overrated and a mediocre killer. That is
I think he's a middle of the pack.
The reason everybody likes him is because he's fun to play as and fun to play against. Plus he is very strong. Like he can teleport wherever he wants and he has a decent like chase ability. I don't think there's anything wrong with the demo. Like I literally can't think of anything wrong with demo besides some of his add-ons being kind of mid. The Borgo is one of the best looking maps.
That's
now that is the hottest take on this list. My hot take is camping, tunneling, slugging, hitting on hook, teabagging, etc. is all completely fine. There's no rules against it. It's part of the game and it doesn't make you a bad person for doing something in game. Yes, like this is just true.
Yeah, but also like if you're doing something to like agitate somebody, you can't surprise Pikachu face when they get agitated. You know what I'm saying? If you're doing something to intentionally agitate somebody and they get agitated, you can't be like, wow, they're so stupid. It's like, no, you were intentionally trying to bother them. Don't act like you weren't.
It may be boring. I completely think that most of this stuff is boring or cringe or whatever, but it doesn't make you a bad person if you do it. It's in the game. You're allowed to do it. I don't think you shouldn't be allowed to do it, but I'm not going to say that it doesn't make you cringe. Like, you can do whatever you want. Personally, I don't do any of these things because I want the other party to have fun for the most part. So I just play normally, but if you do these things, like, there's really not a problem with it. Let me know what your hot take is down in the comments below.
And like, it's okay to have bad hot takes. It's okay. It happens to the best of us. They add some ones in here. I think it's just like, you know, about maintaining some sort of consistency to like your ideas and your philosophies. Because most people, as you saying with a lot of these takes, just kind of like to complain and whine. But as long as you have some sort of like consistent philosophy in how you view the game, you can't be like, as long as you're consistent, at least you're like sticking to your guns and people know what your idea and philosophy about the game is. At least you're consistent. At least you're honest. So, yeah.